This is Roger Simon.
And Lionel Chetwynd.
Welcome back to Pollywood, where Lionel, you, the invader from Canada and England yourself, have a bone to pick with the new English invasion of our
It's an old
television
English invasion,
shores.
and I think the tide is turning. For most of television's lifespan, it's a medium that has been dominated by the United States. Dominated for various reasons, because we developed it first and because we're so advanced in programming. But over the years, that changed for all kinds of reasons. And the tide mark, about 10 years ago, American television started basing itself, rather than being a seller of formats, and have Sony, have Larry Mullen running off the world, showing people how to do 90210, we became a purchaser of formats, largely through a company called Endemol, which was Dutch and is now English. It started innocently enough with reality shows, but then it got to the network. America's Got Talent comes from a British thing. The X Factor comes from a British thing. But notably, the British version of Pop Idol became American Idol. And it brought with it the invasion of the British hosts. Simon Cowell, Piers Morgan, he came here and he suddenly became an American icon. Nigel Lithgow. All of these top 10 shows have at least one or two English persons, and the one that don't have an English voice as the introduction, the voiceover introduction.
Just like every production company in Hollywood had a British secretary 25 years ago.
I think it probably began, by the way, with, and you're the weakest link. The English will say terrible things to you that an American would never say. Well, American Idol, of course, was a big hit, and it went up and down, but generally its history over the 8 years of its life was one of decline. Last year, Simon Cowell was leaving. You know, who's basically a sour, mean narcissist, from what one can tell from the press, and certainly what he projects on television, who imprinted that show with him, with his sharp mouth, in the selection of people particularly. I remember he once threw a sailor off because, oh, the Navy will vote for you, and there was this wonderful little all-American girl, and they got rid of her. And they thought this was the end of American Idol. Well, the numbers are in on the finale for that show, 50 million people. That's enormous. Those are the kind of numbers networks haven't seen in years for a run-of-the-mill show or a finale. And it's been its best year. And the reason most people now think, and this is what came to the upfronts where the networks go and sell the advertising in New York, was because Cowell was gone. That acerbic, nasty Englishman, they picked the better people, they had American judges, and the show has roared away. In the meantime, we see that Piers Morgan is dying on CNN.
In all fairness, Lionel, everything dies on CNN.
Well, that's
CNN is a dead
But he was going to
network.
change that because of his great thing on X Factor, and he was an Englishman. I think we are seeing the end of the English, the superior, look down your nose, I have a second-tier public school accent Englishman coming over here and telling us what to do. I don't think it's the end of format buying. I do not think we're going to be the #1 developer of new ideas. I think we are going to buy that, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be from England any longer, or Endemol.
Does this all go back to Alistair Cook? In a certain way...
He was smart.
Well, yeah, he was smart, and he was a figure out of our childhood, really, and he was sort of the witty man on television that we all admired, and I think we were taught to admire, and I think this permeated the industry in film and television, we were taught to admire the Brits. You still see that coming out in the King's Speech in a more, let's say, legitimate manner, because that's quality work as opposed to Simon Cowell. But it's there, and I think what you're saying is it's going to end. Now, I think it's certainly true. It's going to end in television. I don't know if it's so true in film.
Well, because film is the English have a model. The British have a model for making films where they can make small films. We don't have that model yet. We either make I don't know, forgotten $3 million films, or we make huge $200 million blockbusters. We need a new model here. For example, your film, which is a wiser model for making films. But the thing that is significant is that maybe Americans are indeed growing up. I mean, the thing about Alistair Cook was he gave you context. He would come on to introduce World War II or something, and he wouldn't talk about what the show was going to be. He'd give you contextual information and give you a sense of what this was about. People like Cowell and Morgan and Lithgow to a lesser extent, where he does So You Think You Can Dance, which is a top 10 show, but it's as if I'm English, I'm therefore smarter than you.
Well, no,
Alistair
that's
Cook was, I'm English, and therefore I have something different to offer you.
Right, but there was an element of smarter in that, but done much better. But if you were asked to cleanse the Piers Morgan show, laterally the Larry King show, of course, and that was failing because Larry was in his dotage, to say the least, what would you put there?
I would get someone like Pat Sajak, who's wonderfully amiable, who's very American, to whom people will speak. I just don't want it any more. Piers Morgan came, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the other. They think we're a nursery. You know, too many of them spend a week in New York and 3 days in Los Angeles. They think they know America. I would get rid of him. I would get rid of all these. I'm trying to save CNN. I wouldn't want to do that.
Of course, now here's something about shows coming from abroad. Because as
Which
we're
is the big news. That's the big news.
Yeah, and one of the places it's coming from is Israel. Jews have been in the entertainment industry for years, and here they are. Of course, they had the first show of success was The Treatment.
In Treatment, yeah.
In Treatment, that of course, the psychoanalysis being the Jewish science, blame them or not for it. It was an interesting show, but now there's more stuff coming in with Spielberg and Darren Star and big Hollywood people moving
beginning
in
off network, probably moving to network over time. The interesting about In Treatment, if you watch the first season and the second season, is they basically translated Batshev's Israeli scripts. Yeah. And so the characters, though it's set in Brooklyn, they are so Jewish. It's extraordinary. The child, the mother, the fighter pilot.
There are Jews in Brooklyn, so...
Well, no, I know, but well, that's true, too. The only thing that kind of didn't fit was Gabriel Byrne, who was kind of the strange figure in the midst of it.
Well, I think they were trying to de-Jewify it slightly, and it's very hard with a psychoanalysis show.
There's one question out of this, and that is, why is that happening? And I put it to you that there was a time when, say, if Freddie Silverman ran the network, he would never import a format because his life was that network and what he did, and everything he did, he wanted to be fresh, original, and creative. And now the heads of networks tend to be middle management in huge conglomerates. And I wonder if there's a connection between that and the failure of America to be the creative leader in world television.
I think there is, but I think it's also part of a larger phenomenon, because what we're looking at in our culture right now is the failure of America to be the world leader in a lot of areas. We're essentially farming out innovation more and more. Even Silicon Valley, I've been reading, is weakening in that regard. India is coming up, China coming up. Pretty soon we'll be having Chinese shows.
Well, what we've learned in our business is the bigger the company, the more that people who used to make decisions in middle management, the more risk averse they become, because that's a corporate culture. And risk aversion can work in some things, but not in our business.
I agree with you. And let's be very risky. I'm going to take the risk of wrapping this one up today. So this is Roger Simon.
And Lionel Chapman, au revoir les Anglais.
Au revoir les Anglais in Hollywood.